Hello and welcome to the food revolution.
Yes!
This could be something that could break over.
Because the World Series!
Oh, wow. An X-Wing fighter? Holy cow!
Would you die for this? Break over you.
The uncertainty of Brexit.
You're a more divided nation than we've ever been.
Break yourself. You are home.
Thank you. Welcome home.
Nobody is free until all of us are free. That's the end goal.
Okay, I'm doing this. I'm gay. It feels so good to say.
Say something like you love me.
Did we pay for that?
Open up my eyes. Game over.
How's everybody doing out there? Everybody still awake? All right, great, good. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about how YouTube is moving into the living room. We're going to talk a little bit about some new stuff that's coming. We're going to break a little news, and I think we're going to get to something that maybe some of you are wondering about, which is how YouTube has been thinking about some things happening with some of your advertisers. Neal, let's dive right in. Tell me, I think when people think of YouTube, they've traditionally thought about it as a desktop product, a mobile product, but you guys are making some strong moves to try and get to that big screen in the middle of the family room. Tell me about why you're doing that and what types of things you're getting into there.
Yeah, sure. And so first of all, thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. And thank you, Matt, for being here. I think that before I even get into kind of the reasons behind our investment in the living room and kind of what we're doing there, I think it's important to kind of set the context. And I think the first thing that I would say, and hopefully all of you experience this with your own YouTube experiences, but really as it applies to content in general, I really do feel, and I say this to my teams all the time, that we really are living in the golden age of content. There is so much investment, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars going into producing fantastic content, whether it's movies, television shows, dramas, comedies, not just at YouTube, but across multiple platforms. And the choices that we all have as consumers are really profound. I mean, we've gone from a world where as recently as 30 years ago, there was really 3 or 4 choices every evening, to one now where there's tens of millions of channels just on platforms like YouTube alone. We can switch from one to the other effortlessly. And more of that content just keeps on coming. For example, every hour of every day, there's 400 hours of video content uploaded to YouTube every single minute. And so we have this kind of proliferation of content, and I think what our consumers are telling us is that they'd like to be able to access it wherever they are. And so, for example, like many platforms, mobile is the place where most of our traffic is, about 60% of our traffic, continues to grow really rapidly. But for a platform like YouTube, where so much of it is really about video, the living room makes perfect sense. And in fact, our growth rates in the living room are higher than they are on any other channel, 100% year on year. And if you think about it, it makes sense. You come home after work, you're in this sort of lean back mode. And YouTube, you can turn on something like YouTube. Perhaps you're looking for something specific. Perhaps you're just looking to be entertained or informed. And it turns out that those session lengths on living room for YouTube are longer than they are on any other platform that we have out there.
What are some of the ways people are getting YouTube on their TVs? How are they doing it through set-top boxes, through televisions? Can you talk a little bit about how you're reaching those customers?
Yes, and I'm sure pretty much everybody in the audience has noticed the YouTube app is available on most television devices that are out there. Most major manufacturers, kind of one of the sort of primary apps that's there is the YouTube app. We also are across, most set-top devices, the Rokus, Apple TVs, the gaming consoles, etc. You can also cast from your phone using something like Chromecast. And so we try to make it as easy as possible for our users to be able to get to YouTube just from their television screens.
And so then you study what people are doing in the app, right? And that helps you make decisions about what other kinds of apps to launch. Is that right? Like YouTube Kids, is that correct? Or that was a
Yeah, I guess the way I would think about it is, while we really are living in this kind of golden age of content that I described, the traditional television viewing experience, in our mind, is one that frankly doesn't keep up with all of that great content that's out there. And so if you think about your television experience in the traditional sense today, it's not on demand, it's not personalized, and it doesn't have a lot of the social components that we take for granted when we think about all the digital platforms that we use. And so when we think about our investment in the living room, we think about addressing all three of those things. And so the YouTube app, when you launch it, delivers the content that you want to watch whenever you want to watch it. It truly is video on demand. It's also personalized, because when you're logged into your YouTube app on your television screen, it carries over all of those recommendations, kind of all of that learning we have about what types of programming you like to watch, what types of videos you like to watch, and delivers you that personalized experience that you take for granted from YouTube on your mobile device or on your laptop or on your tablet. And so we bring that to your television screens. And we also make it very easy for you to connect with those content creators that you know and love on the platform. All things that we think have been missing from kind of the traditional television experience, if you will. And we've extended that recently, actually, just a few days ago, to work not just for the YouTube kind of main app experience, but also for an app that we built a couple of years ago, we've now brought to the television screen, which is called YouTube Kids. And so I think for all the parents that are out there, this is going to be really welcome news. YouTube Kids is actually one of our most popular apps. It's got over 30 billion views worldwide. It has 8 million weekly actives. It's an app that's designed for all the little people in our homes, where the corpus is protected, where parents have control over the content that their children are watching. And one of the things that we noticed in the living room is that one of the verticals that was the most popular were kids content and cartoons. Generally content that families like to watch together. Makes sense. You have a big screen, parents are sitting there with their children. And so just a few days ago, we announced YouTube Kids will be a second app in addition to the YouTube main app that will be available on living room screens. It'll be available in all 26 countries where YouTube Kids is available, across LG, Samsung, and Sony smart TVs to start, but it'll come to the same set of devices that you enjoy YouTube TV, the main app on today.
Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of stuff is in YouTube Kids? Like what are the, you mentioned cartoons, but what else is there? Are there learning experiences in there?
Yeah, there's a very large portion of the corpus for YouTube Kids is educational content. Obviously educational content done in a fun way. There's a lot of, we have a lot of endemic YouTube creators that produce content purpose-built for children. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she has her favorite set of creators that she follows, and some of them are entertainment, lots of them have sort of educational value to them as well. And then we also work with lots and lots of kind of traditional content creators who've been producing content for a very long time, like Sesame Street, etc., to put that content on YouTube Kids as well.
Something you and I were talking about backstage is getting rid of your cable connection. I think that there are quite a few people, myself included, who feel like we're really on the cusp of being able to do that in a real way, where you can still get live sports, you can still get 24-hour news, and a big reason that it seems like we're on the cusp of being able to do that is now things like YouTube TV. Can you tell folks what YouTube TV is and what you've been seeing since you launched it?
How many folks have heard of YouTube TV in the audience? Show of hands. A fair amount. So for those of you that haven't, it's actually a new product from YouTube that we launched a few weeks ago. And the idea there, and it's consistent with this theme of YouTube in the living room, the idea there is that we combine the best of kind of traditional broadcast and cable television with the best of YouTube. And it's an experience where we've partnered with our content partners, all the major broadcast channels, many of the major cable channels, and for $35 a month, you have a complete subscription to content, all the shows that you know and love, all the content and programming that you know and love from traditional television, alongside all of what you watch on YouTube on a regular basis. And so, for example, if the one thing that you sensed was missing from the YouTube platform over the years was something, as you mentioned, like live sports, well, now you get that through all the partnerships that we have with the major broadcasters, the cable channels, like the ESPNs, et cetera, of the world. If there was a particular drama that you enjoyed on television and you were able to kind of get highlights of it on YouTube, well, now you can get the full show alongside all of those kind of clips and secondary content that you were already finding on YouTube. And again, it goes back to this notion of we think there's great content out there, but we wanted to build a television experience that was truly built for this century, oriented towards kind of our core millennial audience. And so we've done things in YouTube TV that have never been done before. So for $35 a month, you get a DVR that's not limited by the space that you have on your set-top in your home, because the DVR is in the cloud. For that same price, you get access to all the Google machine learning driven personalization and search recommendations, so you can come home and you can say something as simple as turn on the Warriors game, and it'll just do that. You don't need to remember the channel, the time, etc. If it's not quite on, it'll put it on your DVR, and you can do this across 6 different accounts in the household, so that each user in the household can get their own personalized experience alongside their roommates or siblings or parents, etc. And so and the final piece that I'll mention, because I think it's important to everybody in terms of how we live our lives today, is it works seamlessly from device to device. And so we did a study, and we found that 90% of users complete a task on a different device than they started the task on, whether it's watching a video, browsing a piece of content, making a travel reservation, what have you. And YouTube's no different. And so we wanted YouTube TV to work seamlessly across all devices, so that you might be watching the game on your mobile phone, it should seamlessly switch to your television when that's the appropriate time, to your laptop when it is, to your tablet, etc. And so we wanted to create this kind of reimagined experience in terms of how television should really work with today's great content, and that's what YouTube TV is.
One thing I wanted to ask you to clarify, so when you talk about getting sports on YouTube TV, is this just national games like on ESPN, or can I watch my local teams as well?
Yeah, so this is I happen to be a sports nut myself, so this was an important thing for me as well. One of the things that distinguishes YouTube TV from perhaps other services that are out there is that not only do you get the national games, you also get your local favorite teams. And so we, as part of our content arrangements, we have arrangements with all the regional sports networks. So for example, you and I are from the Bay Area, so we'd be able to get all the Giants games and the Warriors games that are being carried locally alongside all the sports that you would find via the national broadcasts like NFL games, etc.
And I can watch that on my computer when I'm pretending to be working as well? Or?
You can do that all day long.
Okay, good to know. What type of adoption are you seeing on that? Are people starting to pick that up? And does that $35 price tag stick, or is that like an introductory rate and then it goes up to the same way that my cable price does after 6 months or a year? So $35 is the price that we plan to be working with. It's really, this product is really hot, brand new, off the shelf. I mean, we're talking about having rolled it out, I believe, less than a month ago. So it's really in the market for a few weeks. The initial response has been, fantastic. The reviews of the product have been really great. And what's most important for me is that the consumer feedback, the feedback from all of our users has been really, really positive. Not just in terms of
the great content that's available there, but a lot of it around this kind of unique user experience that I described.
Switching gears a little bit, I assume that there's a pretty good business reason for you guys to be wanting to get in the living room, as well as just like it's a nice thing to do for people to be able to see content on their big screen. There's been, talk for several years about ad dollars moving from TV to digital. Are you starting to really see that now? Is that happening in a profound way?
Yeah, and I've been, obviously involved with YouTube for a long time. Even longer than that, I've been involved with, in the advertising industry over the last couple of decades, and I've certainly seen that shift. And in my mind, it happens for a few simple reasons. If you're a brand or an advertiser, you want to go where your audience is. And as was mentioned earlier, we just recently announced the fact that on YouTube, there's 1 billion hours of video consumed every single day. That's a very meaningful chunk of the entire video consumption that happens across the planet every single day. Over 1 billion users come to our platform every single month. And so if you're a brand, that's where your audience is. And especially if you care about that younger, more millennial audience, the numbers skew even more extreme when you think about that audience. We did a recent survey where we asked that audience to identify who their top influences were, and 8 of the 10 on that top 10 list were endemic YouTube stars. Only 2 of them were traditional sort of musicians / Hollywood stars. And so from a brand perspective, of course, it makes sense to put your dollars there. One of the things that we have also tried to do is make sure that when we think about advertising on the platform, we're doing it with a consumer-first or user-first mentality. As I said, we live in a world where it's very easy to switch from one channel to the other if there's something uninteresting or annoying about that channel, and we want to make sure that the advertising is something where consumers have a choice as well. And that's why we introduced, several years ago, and I think we were, one of the first in the industry, a skippable ad format. It's called TrueView, and really simply, if the consumers are not interested in that advertising message, they can skip it. And the advertiser doesn't have to pay when that happens, but more importantly, the user can just move on to their content. I think everybody's experienced the TrueView format. In the mobile world, we're also introducing kind of less intrusive formats. For example, a few months ago, we released a bumper ad format. So instead of the traditional 30-second TV commercial that we live through every single day, this is a 6-second format, which allows brands to get their message across, but also allows consumers to kind of get on with their content consumption experience, especially in a world where they might be snacking, watching a few minutes of video content here or there throughout the course of the day. And I think it's really for that reason of kind of the fact that the audience is there and the fact that the ad formats allow them to connect even more closely with their consumers that advertisers have continue to increase their spend on our platform. We have this program that those of you in the media industry may be familiar with called Google Preferred. It's our means to attract or make it simple for television to advertise, television dollars to flow to YouTube. It's an upfront that we run every year. In fact, it's going to happen later this week in New York.
You're flying there tomorrow, right?
I'm flying there today to be a part of it. And it's something that's grown every year. In fact, this year over last year, Google Preferred's grown 65%. The number of advertisers, US brands, that we have participating in the program has doubled year on year. And so television advertisers have kind of voted with their pocketbooks in terms of where their spend is. And again, I think it's fundamentally because they find this really engaged audience of 1 billion plus users on the platform.
But you've also had a big backlash from advertisers this year. In basically, they've been uncomfortable with their ads being placed against certain videos. Anybody can make a video and upload it to YouTube, and sometimes that can be stuff that's untrue, hateful. What are you trying to do to make advertisers more comfortable to stay there and to be there?
Yeah, so in the last few weeks, we've definitely gotten feedback from a lot of our brands as we continue to grow that they really want to make sure that their advertising is showing up in places on YouTube, on videos on YouTube that are suitable for their brands. And we've heard that feedback. We've worked incredibly hard over the course of the last month in terms of identifying videos that may not be suitable for advertisers' brands. we've tightened up our policies, but more importantly, tightened up enforcement of those policies, and as a result, we've now identified 5 times as many more videos as we were before that we've eliminated from the rotation where advertisers' ads may have run. We've also introduced new controls for advertisers so that they can pinpoint their advertising more precisely on the YouTube platform. But I think one thing that's very important to remember, and it really goes back to the founding of YouTube 12 years ago, is what makes the platform great is it is a place where any one of us can express themselves freely. No matter how controversial of a message we have, no matter how much cutting-edge content we have or how much we're pushing the boundaries. And I just want to be clear that we have no plans to change that sort of fundamental ethos about YouTube, because while we need to, a lot of that content, of course, is funded by our fantastic advertisers and our partnerships with them, and that's why we've been so feverishly working to address their needs. We also want to make sure that there's a balance in terms of what we can do to foster that type of creative expression, free speech on our platform. So, for example, for creators, in addition to them being able to generate money through advertisers, if you post a piece of content to YouTube, you can make money through other channels, such as Super Chat, which is a new feature that allows fans to pay creators directly. We have a new product called FameBit, which allows brands and creators to connect directly and kind of make sponsored messages. And we're exploring other means by which creators can build their livelihoods on the YouTube platform and express themselves freely.
Neal, we're running out of time here, and I want to make sure we get to this. You have something brand new to talk about today, right?
Yeah, so we're very excited. I spent a lot of time talking about the user's experience in the living room, and a lot of focus, as I said, on this sort of golden age of content concept. So we actually we're in the midst of rolling out a completely revamped design of our desktop application. You can get a quick look of it here. We're going to roll this out in stages. It's experimental in nature. It's a very early beta. But for those of you that are interested, we're going to have a limited opportunity for you to go and experience it. It's at youtube.com/new. And the design principle is very basic. It's very simple, which is we really want the technology and everything surrounding the content to simply fade out of the way when you're connecting with creators and the content that you know and love on the YouTube platform. And so that means a few things. For example, a lot of what might have been distracting text and things like that in the current YouTube experience kind of fades away when you're consuming content. It has a much lighter kind of ephemeral feel to it. The other aspect is that we want to be consistent across all of our YouTube experiences, from desktop to tablet to your experience on iOS or Android, and even in the living room. And this new redesign sets us up for that. It's actually built on a technology called Polymer, which will allow for very fast iteration and innovation. And so while this is just the beginning, over the course of the next few weeks and months, look for kind of new pieces of innovation that we'll be bringing to all of our users. And one of them to start with is what you can kind of see here in the dark background, which is something that's called dark mode. And the idea here is to give a very dark palette to the content that you're consuming, so that you can actually, your eyes are trained on the true colors of the content and the video that you're consuming, and everything else really fades out of the way. That's something that when you're opted into this new redesign, you can choose by going into the settings area and turning on the toggle. So we're really excited about this. This is something that we're announcing today. You're the first, this audience really is the first to hear about this, and you can go immediately to youtube.com/new and experience it for yourself. You'll be able to switch back to the old experiences easily if you choose to do so. But the reason I'm excited is that I think it's the beginning of a journey, and you'll see a lot more innovation from us here because of this new technology, not just on the desktop, but also across our other applications on iOS, Android, the living room, etc.
And Neal, thank you so much for coming out today, and thank you all too.
Thank you very much.